The Big Four, Mania, the Rumble, SummerSlam, and also Survivor Series, I guess. The homes of WWE's biggest matches every year. Most of the time. Sometimes WWE would throw a bone to the fans that bought tickets for the pay-per-views that would land on a month other than January, April, August, and November, and book one of the biggest matches possible. WWE has scaled back their amount of pay-per-views or premium live events in recent years, and at least since the Triple H takeover, pretty much all of them have had a monumental main event. Brock vs. Cody, Roman vs. Sami, shows have been worth watching, but allow us to cast ourselves back to a time when the biggest matches were reserved for the biggest shows, and anything else, well, that was just a happy surprise. I'm Tempest hailing from partsFUNknown, and these are 10 huge WWE matches that took place on B-level pay-per-views. But before we get on with our list, make sure of course that you like this video and subscribe to partsFUNknown. We're trying to get to 250,000 subscribers, and when we do, we will be doing a full live stream playing through a 4-person MyGM mode in WWE 2K23, so make sure you subscribe today. Honorable mention, John Cena vs. CM Punk Money in the Bank 2011. Certainly one of the biggest matches to ever take place outside of WWE's Big Four pay-per-views, and had this list been made a decade ago, this certainly would have qualified, but in 2023, Money in the Bank has sort of unofficially become a WWE Big Five pay-per-view, graduating from B-show status. Still, worth shouting out, as it is, well, one of the biggest WWE matches ever, and one of the main reasons Money in the Bank has grown as a format like it has. Number 10, Seth Rollins vs. Sting, Night of Champions 2015. Sting's WWE run is not terribly well regarded outside of his debut. Never winning on pay-per-view certainly plays a role in that, and half of that equation came at Night of Champions 2015. Seth Rollins was set to receive his statue for defeating John Cena, enshrining him as the beacon that the Wade Barretts, Rusevs, and Bray Wyatts of the world could aspire to be. Only when the curtain was raised, Seth found that his statue looked more like a statue of Sting, a statue that would move, and also was made of flesh. Kidding aside, this was a shocking moment, as a Night of Champions title match between Seth Rollins and Sting seemed like a pretty monumental deal, as this was going to be the first time that Sting actually got to wrestle any of the young stars in WWE, and for the top prize in the company no less. Unfortunately, we all know how that match went. Sting got hurt real bad and would be kept out of the ring for nearly 6 years. Just goes to show that not all of the matches on this list will have panned out the way we had hoped. Number 9, The Rock vs. Hulk Hogan, No Way Out 2003. Speaking of matches that didn't end up being nearly as good as fans would have liked them to be, The Rock and Hulk Hogan's match at WrestleMania 18 is one of the great matches in WrestleMania history, with one of the craziest crowd responses in all of WWE history. Their rematch at No Way Out 2003 is butt. A big heaping pile of butt. Sorry Montreal, Toronto is just better than you. The pay-per-view may have been sold on the back of the hype of their first match, but in this case, those who bought the pay-per-view were swindled because that first match sure didn't end with a screwjob finish involving crooked referee Sylvain Grenier. We compare a lot of sequels in wrestling to films like The Dark Knight, or The Empire Strikes Back, or The Godfather Part 2, but this was the Independence Day resurgence of wrestling sequels, the Pacific Rim Uprising of wrestling sequels, the Blues Brothers 2000 of wrestling sequels, the number 8, Triple H vs. Dean Ambrose, Roadblock 2016. Speaking of Toronto being better than Montreal, now finally onto some matches that actually lived up to the hype. During the dark days of over-pushed, underperforming WrestleMania main eventer Roman Reigns, WWE fans were clamoring for that spot to instead be filled by Dean Ambrose, with Adam's favorite match, Triple H vs. Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 32, being the key example of a match better suited for Dean to be in. As such, WWE gave fans what they wanted at Roadblock in Toronto, and sure enough, it proved to be a much better match than what we ended up getting at WrestleMania. Triple H wasn't having many singles matches at the time, so one against Dean Ambrose was a big deal, and Roadblock wasn't even a pay-per-view, it was just a WWE Network special, practically a house show with cameras. I would know. I was there. And no matter what kind of show it was, this was a match befitting of the biggest stage possible, an incredibly dynamic WWE Championship match that still stands as one of Triple H's best straight singles matches. The only time this match ever happened, which is a shame because this is one WWE could have easily run back. Number 7, Kurt Angle vs. The Undertaker, No Way Out 2006. You know, you might not think that an undead witch man and an Olympic gold medalist would be two wrestling characters that would mesh perfectly together, but if you thought that, you're a stupid fool idiot, baby, because obviously those two wrestlers would be The Undertaker and Kurt Angle. Considering that this show was 1 month before WrestleMania 22, and this match would be in considerable contention to main event WrestleMania had it been part of the show, it's kind of wild that this is just a one-off title defense for Kurt Angle on No Way Out of all shows. And what a match it is. This was maybe the best pay-per-view match in all of 2006 for WWE. Really depends on how much you like Edge and Cena and TLC, or the sight of Vince McMahon's head inside Big Show's asshole. And that extends to No Way Out as well. This was maybe the best match in the show's history if you ignore all the matches that are better than this one. It didn't matter if it was 2000, 2002, 2006, if Angle and Scary Terry were in the ring together, they had chemistry. Imagine if this was a WrestleMania match. The streak truly suffers for not having Kurt be a part of it. Number 6, The Rock vs. CM Punk, Elimination Chamber 2013. When The Rock returned to WWE in 2011, most probably would have expected that all of his matches would have been reserved for the biggest pay-per-views imaginable. His return match was at Survivor Series, then he wouldn't wrestle again until the grandest false advertisement of all time, and then again almost 10 months later at the Royal Rumble when he won the WWE title from CM Punk, ending his 434-day reign as champion. However, I reckon the fine fans in New Orleans sure didn't expect that when they bought their tickets for Elimination Chamber that they would be seeing just The Rock's 4th match since 2004. Sure enough, CM Punk's rematch took place here, at the annual pit stop on the road to WrestleMania, and it was pretty good. Yeah, it was pretty fine. Number 5, The Shield vs. Evolution, Extreme Rules and Payback 2014. No, I don't really get this Evolution song. Evolution isn't really a mystery, is it? We've got a lot of proof that it has happened, what it is, why it happens. Where's the mystery, Lemmy? Where is the mystery? Anyway, following the Shield's 2014 babyface turn, they didn't have a terrible amount of heel forces to oppose them. They had already squared off with the Wyatt family, and they were already starting to go their separate ways, so who should this young trio of future stars turn their attention to but 3 of the top stars of the prior decade? The Shield vs. Evolution sounded like one of those dream matches that would never be possible, but with Batista's return to WWE in 2014, all of a sudden we had all the makings of maybe the biggest 6-man tag match in WWE history at Extreme Rules and Payback 2014. Extreme Rules was the better match of the two, even if the Payback match holds a special place in my heart because of Blue Tista, the most unserious man of all time, but both cases were WWE putting on a colossal main event match for a pair of usually neglected pay-per-views. Number 4, Roman Reigns vs. John Cena, No Mercy 2017. It really came out of nowhere in October 2017 when the top dog of the reality era of WWE, Roman Reigns, was all of a sudden set to face the face that runs the place for the prior 12 years, John Cena, and that match wasn't like the main event of WrestleMania. Hell, it wasn't even the main event of this show, and the only match on this list not to main event the pay-per-view that it was on. No Mercy 2017 was one B pay-per-view that WWE decided to try exceptionally hard on, putting on a pair of huge matches that otherwise would probably have fit right in among the biggest shows of the year in this match and Brock Lesnar vs. Braun Strowman. But where Lesnar and Strowman fell short of the audience's expectations, Roman and Cena delivered, having a very fun match with Cena more or less passing the torch to his struggling successor. Their next match wouldn't be until SummerSlam 2021, which seems like a more appropriate setting for such a clash, but for a middle-of-the-card match on a B show, it quite literally does not get much bigger than this. Number 3, John Cena vs. Brock Lesnar, Extreme Rules 2012. Huge returns on the night after WrestleMania are sometimes funny because if it is a huge star, fans might expect that star to then wait to wrestle at like SummerSlam or the next available major show, but in the case of Brock Lesnar in 2012, he jumped right in to wrestle the biggest star in WWE, John Cena, at Extreme Rules. Fresh off being the biggest box office draw in the prior 4 years in all of combat sports, Brock walked into a WWE B show and popped a very good buy rate because he was a killer, you see, one who would throw his entire body at John Cena and then elbow him in the head until funny red liquid poured out. This was the biggest match WWE could book at the time, and with a Lesnar win, they would print money for the next 18 months as people would try and beat the unbeatable former UFC champion. And for reasons completely my own, I'm going to choose not to talk about what happened next. Number 2, CM Punk vs. Triple H, Night of Champions 2011. The summer of Punk in 2011 didn't lead to very many wins on pay-per-view for Punk immediately after Money in the Bank. In fact, he was pinned on the next 4 straight, and the most prolific case of this came at Night of Champions of all places, where after having had enough of Punk's anti-authority shtick, Triple H came out of semi-retirement, beat him, and then went back into retirement. CM Punk vs Triple H is a massive match on paper, and honestly, the stretch of time that came after this match very much helped make this rivalry much more mythical than it ever was on screen. But in 2011, when Punk was WWE's hottest star in quite a long while, this still felt like a match big enough for a Survivor Series or Royal Rumble or WrestleMania Showdown. As a match, it's alright. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors and R-Truth and Miz and Kevin Nash, far too much for a match built on years of resentment and deep-seated personal animosity, if you ask me. Was it too early to have Triple H lose and have to resign as figurehead of WWE? Maybe, but he did that like a month later anyway, so why wouldn't you just wait and have Punk beat him and not kill his momentum? Oh, the questions of the universe we will never have answered. And number 1, Roman Reigns vs Seth Rollins vs Dean Ambrose, Battleground 2016. We will never get the Shield triple threat match in a main event of WrestleMania. I know you can never say never, but I don't think anyone has found the key to that forbidden door. As it stands, the only time we have ever gotten a triple threat match between the 3 members of this great faction outside of their 3-way in FCW, #factcheck, was in the main event of Battleground 2016. Usually WWE's most neglected pay-per-view, holder of the worst pay-per-view award in 2013, 2014, and 2017, Battleground was given a gift in 2016 in the form of this match. At the time, this was a weird time to do it, with Roman coming off a wellness policy violation, so he was especially hated. Seth Rollins was in the middle of his just returned from an injury to a crowd that really wanted to cheer him, but he kept being a heel for 2 months anyway and then turned babyface to a much worse response phase. And Dean Ambrose was WWE champion, which somehow was the most baffling part of that puzzle. This match felt destined for a Mania match that it would never receive, especially tragic considering how much bigger that match would be now in comparison. But for the brave souls who bought tickets to Battleground expecting to see nonsense, instead they got this. And also Kevin Owens vs Sami Zayn. I hear that was pretty good too. And that's our list. Make sure, of course, that you like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure that you help us get to 250,000 subscribers. It would mean a lot. And check out another one of our lists right here. And the inevitable media firestorm that will be sure to come with it, brackets, too late, close brackets, we figured now would be the perfect time to reflect on the best matches and stories that CM Punk has ever been part of and the dancing partners that did the waltz with him.